Welcome to the Wonderful Soccer Pod. We're sponsored by absolutely nobody. I'm just doing this from the kindness of my heart, and I like talking shit. There's a lot of things that parents don't think about during tryouts, and they get their kids ready for tryouts. They're like pep talking them, and most of the time, man, like these kids are really good. U.S. soccer is failing our kids, but I'd be lying to you if I told you guys that we didn't have some pretty awesome talent, very athletic, very smart soccer players out there, and there's more and more. Like every year you see 3 or 4 kids that jump out at you, and then the next season it's 5 or 6 kids, and then the next year it's an entire team, and that makes tryouts very, very hard, very, very difficult. This thing that happens in a lot of tryouts that I've seen, and again, I've been fortunate enough to be part of a few, whether I'm making the decision or whether I'm helping make the decision, whatever, I've been part of it. And one thing I can tell you, especially at that age, like where they're like really young, like they're barely getting into select, so they're like 11 years old, 10 years old, whatever the case may be, there's very little things that separates the very last kid in the roster and the other kid that was going to get picked. And what happens is sometimes that's not just the last kid on the roster, that's like 5 or 6 kids, right? And one thing that is prevalent is once you start checking out all the boxes, right? Like both these kids are fast. Both these kids are, great with the ball. Both these kids pass well. Both these kids are smart, whatever. You go into attitude, right? Bobby Booster, he's a great kid and everything, but, his mentality, he tends to get very negative. He tends to get mad at his teammates a lot, this and that. Great player, but, had a little bit of a hot head. All right, well, Gilly McGillicuddy, he's not as good. He's not as good skill-wise. We can get him there. But I'll tell you one thing, like the kid tries hard. He's improving very, very quickly. And he's improving very, very quickly. And he's great. And he's coachable. Coachable being the operative word there. It doesn't bring all the things to the table that the other kid does. But kids who are coachable get coaches excited to coach. I'm driving to the field. I'm thinking how excited I am to coach that kid. It may be the entire team I'm excited, but there's always certain players that you're like, man, I really love the way they take coaching, right? So that's number one. Then let's say they're both equally as coachable. They're both great, all that stuff. Then it goes down to the parent. You would be surprised how many times that conversation comes up about the parent. What is this parent like? What are they like on the sidelines? What is this? Because I always say there's 2 games being played on a soccer field, right? It's the actual game, and then it's the social game between the parents. Now, a lot of times parents think we're oblivious to it, but I'm here to tell you guys, there is always a mole. Always. And sometimes it's a mole that doesn't even know they're a mole. It's not like the coaches are texting going like, what did she say? Sometimes it's just information given to you. You're just talking right now, be like, yeah, well, so-and-so hates that, the daughter plays here, that her son plays here. Boom. You put that in the back, and then you're like, all right, I'm going to be paying attention to that. The season's hard enough without having to deal with the adults. Unfortunately, it's part of the job, but coaches deal with it in a different way. Now, I'm not saying that having questions about your kid, whether it's, your kid's future or how your kid's playing or their development, those are all really good questions to ask your coach. And coming from a coach right here, I actually like it because it means the parents are engaged on the right stuff. And we can always tell. Whenever. So I'll give you an example. Whenever I put a kid, let's say, in a position they're not comfortable with, they're kids. They don't know that they're doing this. But I will say, hey, little Greggy McGregors, you're playing left mid today, and maybe he likes to play forward. First thing he'll do is go, okay, coach, look over at their parent. What that's telling me right there is dad's been talking about it, mom's been talking about it, they don't want to play that position, whatever, right? That's okay. It happens. But those are little clues that we get where we would prefer you come talk to us so we can tell you what's going on. And then that way you can get that messaging out to your kid. We think that kids hide things well. They do not. They will tell you things at practice that is just to them a tiny little comment, but to you, you're like, okay, I know where we're at now. Like an example is I had this dad one time who didn't want his son playing defense. Here's the problem though. His son was a fantastic defender and he should be proud of that. And that's what I was, preaching to the son, this and that, whatever. They were doing a scrimmage and the kid's back there and I could hear him talking to the other defender. And he goes, man, I don't know. I'm doing pretty good today. I might stop doing pretty good because then my dad's going to get mad at me because he doesn't want me playing defense. So the dad told him to purposely not play well. Yeah. And that's not even the craziest story. Like I have a million about parents like putting stuff in kids' heads. So if there's one thing that I want parents to take away from this discussion, you cannot control what the coach wants to do, nor should you want to. Because if you start becoming a problem, we're going to remember. And then the next season when tryouts come, even though we love your kid and your kid is awesome, one of the first people we're going to think about when we're making this decision is you. Because I don't only have to coach your kid, I also have to hear you every day. And I may not want to do that, and a lot of coaches may not want to do that either.